Regulation in cyber resilience. The panel will be organized by Dr. Amir Mohammed from the College of Engineering, and we have here with us the panel guest speakers, Dr. Fawaz Al-Khatib from Tahir Group and Kalo, and Mr. Kyle Bernadette from the Office of the Military Cooperation.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Hope your morning is well so far. My name is Amir Mohammed. I'm from the Computer Engineering Department here at Kuwait University. I'll be moderating this panel related to the role of laws, regulations, and policies in cybersecurity, which my colleague, Engineer Duke, previously touched upon, but now we're going to go into more detail. So, the landscape of cybersecurity is constantly changing, and with it comes a new set of tools, techniques, and technologies that requires us to understand how they work. We should monitor them and, if necessary, regulate them to prevent abuse and deter malicious actors. So in this panel, we're going to discuss this, hopefully, and we're going to look at some points or some questions that we'll ask our guests here. Today, we're very pleased to have joined by Mr. Kyle Brundage, who is, who is a system administrator at the Office of Military Cooperation at the U.S. Embassy at Kuwait. And we have with us as well Dr. Fawaz Al-Khatib from the Tahir Group law firm and Kalo here in Kuwait. So, welcome both. We're happy to have you here. So first of all, just to give us, can you give us like a brief introduction on your background in cybersecurity, just like maybe a 1 or 2 minute introduction?
All right, perfect. Thank you all very much for coming. I'm very happy to be here. It's very humbling, first of all. I do appreciate everyone being able to accommodate English. I have tried a bit of Arabic, but haven't been very good at it so far. So if you know courses, please let me know. But obviously, as you know, my name is Kyle Brundage. I've been in Kuwait now for the last 3 years. I first started off doing cybersecurity down there at Camp Arif John, and I was lucky enough to join my team there at the embassy doing system administration, which you think might actually just be servers, but it's a little bit of everything. And so far, I have my master's in cybersecurity and information assurance, along with my CISSP certification.
Thank you. It's great to be here again. I've worked as an attorney and appealed in front of the Supreme Court in several hacking cases internationally and locally. Our law firm goes back to 1969, so it's been 15 years in the field. And I teach criminal law at the Kuwait International Law School. It's final exams stage now, so I have to be quick and go back there. Please, let's start then.
Yeah. Right. So I think we'll just start with the first question. So with regards to that is the regulations. So we know that several governments and multinational entities, they have one or more regulations in place, such as the FISMA in the US and GDPR in the European Union. And perhaps what I'm trying to say is that if a regulatory body here in Kuwait would like to initiate this process and create their own regulation, what are the main points that this body should focus on in order to create an effective regulation?
Thank you. So there's sort of two different ways that I see this question. And when I say that, I mean, in order to be cyber resilient, one of the best ways by doing that is just being able to prevent anything from happening at all. Able to mitigate anything that can happen to your network or to your system, government, corporation, user data, anything like that. On the other hand, I also think about accountability. I think about when these organizations are created, making sure that they're accountable for user data, user privacy, and things like that is going to be a good way that they're going to go through the research and the design that it takes in order to harden everything that's going on with their network.
Well, I do agree with what you just said. The problem is when we read the cyber crimes law in Kuwait, we can see there is a mixed bag of philosophy in it. The language which is used in the law is related to the administrative law, while it's all about crimes. So I think what happened there is they took a law and changed it in a criminal perspective just to combat certain behaviors. So the law states cybercrime is any violation of the rule of law. Violation here means mukhalafa, intihak. So the law is talking about administrative sanctions, criminal sanctions, civil sanctions, while the law is named cyber crimes, al-jara'im al-electroniya. So the title is based on a criminal philosophy, the content is a mixed bag. This leads to lack of legislation expertise, because do we want to correct, prevent, or do we want to combat? What is the goal of the law? Here we can see it's more problematic, because that's what led to the problem of priority of applying the law. We need prioritization. We need to نحدد الأولويات. Now when we look into 2021, 2,205 cases related to social media. Where are the law cases related to cyber crimes? So it started with a bad law written in a mixed bag philosophy, and then ended to fighting the wrong crimes. If we read what is the cyber crime, the law named it as information crime, which is really interesting because it's not necessarily related to the network. And then the law states that information crime is related to the violation of the law, and then we have 7 examples: hacking, illegal entry, denial of service, forging documents and medical documents, phishing and identity theft, seize money, and use the information to threaten the dignity of a person. Is there any strategic regulation in the law? No. So the question here is, how can we improve the law? First of all, we need an updated national cybersecurity obligation on the government. We need to have a clear strategy and a transparent one. What does that mean? It means when I ask about my right, where is my information recorded and how it is protected, I shouldn't be prosecuted like one of the colleagues in Kuwait University. I should be given a clear information. And even if I have a misleading information, they should correct me rather than prosecute me. So, and also to understand the strategy, we also need to know and to understand what's the policy of the internet in Kuwait. Further to the sovereignty of recording the information, the network itself, where it is. Is it in Kuwait or not? How it is recorded? Which body is responsible of that? This information, by disclosing, it should be disclosed in the internet in a very clear way for any person, not specialized one, to reach it, understand it, and that's how we can develop it. Critically analyze the information and have a better view about it and write our recommendations as academic institutions or consultancy. Second, we have to know specifically about the capacity of withstand and recover the information once a problem happens. So how will they react with the attacks? So it is called a recovery plan. What is the recovery plan? This should be information available to the public and renewed on an annual basis. The law did not state any such obligation. That goes back to the bad drafting. It's all about crimes, fighting crimes, focusing on the wrong type of crimes. Now, thirdly, cyber resilience in financial sectors is very important. In the previous conference, the first conference, I mentioned one case only. In a listed company, 4 million dinars was hacked internationally. And it's a listed company, it's our money, we're invested in the market because we trust the market. Is there a clear cyber crime policy for financial sector? It's not that much. Just one paragraph in the law. So we need a clear financial policy, and then we need to make sure that they comply with it, the financial institutions in the stock market. The ultimate goal is to prevent harm, damages, physical, financial, and moral ones. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was a really good answer, I think. I think you solved partly the next question, so I'm going to skip that. So I guess with regards to cybercrime, which you were talking about, there's something that perhaps eludes me, which is every day we're seeing new technologies and such as AI and privacy in AI and blockchains. So how do these technologies, or let's say how do legislators how do we assist them in catching up with these technologies and making sure that the regulations are up to date and match what we have with regards to the level of technologies that we are seeing being deployed in public? We don't want them, for example, to write something that becomes outdated next day, right? So how can we ensure that this sort of thing doesn't happen, and how can we anticipate this?
Well, I think it's much like being able to attend summits such as this one. It's just a continuing education, being able to attend summits, conferences, reading books, seeing videos, seminars, anything that you can do to continue your education, not only in cybersecurity, but for technology as well. Because I'm sure we can all understand that technology is going to continue to rapidly outpace any sort of legislature. And just being able to stay on top of such things, and for these legislators and policymakers, they need to have a very, very thorough understanding. But there also shouldn't be just one either. There should be some sort of checks and balances in the system, that there isn't just one cybersecurity expert that's making legislature. There should at least be a couple of them. And also being able to educate their fellow policymakers and make sure that they understand the pros and cons of what exactly that they're trying to pass or revise.
Thank you. I'm going to start where you ended. Education is not on, and research is not only important but crucial in the legal framework. Because first question is when we talk about Bitcoin, is it a commodity? Is it something that I can exchange? It's not like money. I'm giving you a money and you're giving me something, or a car, or a physical thing. It's something that will be deleted and recreated again when it comes to Bitcoin, for example. So أنا ما قاعد أنقل بضاعة لك، أنا قاعد ألغي بضاعتي وأريد أخترعها لك من جديد. فكيف نتعامل? How can we deal with this problematic issue in a legal sense? So that's where education and philosophy comes. Now, in terms of the continually new crimes, it's a global challenge, especially when it comes to the internet. And we will always need new regulations and specialized judges to understand the sophisticated terms and to understand why should we combat this crime, what's morally wrong with it. The true challenge here is not domestic or local one, but international one, because usually most cyber crimes don't go to trial because it's committed by someone outside the country. And the bureaucracy on dealing with the police locally from one jurisdiction to another is very slow, that the cybercrime is moving very fast in comparison. So in the criminal justice system, they created the محكمة العدل الدولية, International Criminal Court. When it came to the financial issue, they created the Interpol. But in cybercrime, still we don't have international police or international investigation body. And this is very crucial to fight these kind of crimes. That's one of the problems that we should think about and suggest. many research in Cambridge, for example, suggested a new court called International Financial Court. So they want to create international body to solve international financial disputes. Cyber crimes have the same problematic issues where we cannot chase them easily. So countries should cooperate and think about that carefully. Two challenges they'll have: sovereignty, siyada, and politics. Because sometimes it comes to istikhbarat or things related to spying between one country and another, and then the cybercrime law here will interfere heavily on governments, such as when it comes to Russia, USA. The other thing is related to the idea and notion of which body should govern cybercrime in the country. Because now, for example, when it comes to Bitcoin, the central bank is trying to interfere and the financial authority. But in an institutional level, are they capable of that? Because it's total different science. It's not money and it's not stock market. It's another level of, from the basics till we dig deeply to the matter. So having, for example, a center is not enough. It's an authority in itself when it comes to cybercrime law. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. This is actually indeed quite a challenge and something that we need to somehow resolve nationally and internationally. Right, so for, I guess, my final question before pushing it to the audience is with regards to international standards. So NIST, for example, NIST, which is it's a standard developing organization in the US, as well as, let's say, ISO, they all have developed their own standards for information security and cybersecurity, and they're there to establish guidelines for organizations to follow, basically like best practices and guidelines that would help in increasing cyber resilience. Now, every country has their own way of deciding whether they should adopt this standard or not. And this sort of causes miscommunication sometimes, or sometimes even lack of interoperability between one nation and another. So how can, let's say, standard developing organizations incentivize these countries into, let's say, getting like a unified standard that we can all follow and move through, so that we don't face the issue of heading into a place where we can't communicate properly, or we're going to lose either in the sense from either information security we're losing, or we're losing some other kind of information.
So I think one of the very first things that we can look at is the economy itself. Obviously, a lot of these companies, a lot of organizations, or just governments around the world, they want to be able to protect their intellectual property. They want to avoid piracy, unauthorized software usage, and things like that. So by being able to work together, they can prevent some of this stuff and leaching around, and prevent, like I was saying, piracy and a lot of those issues. But on the other hand, when you think about, as something I mentioned earlier, the amount of research and design that it takes to go through and form some of these organizations that are creating these standards, like when I consider that, when I go into my position at work and I can look at the standards of NIST, ISO, GPDR, or perhaps even the 24/7 network from the Budapest Convention, a lot of these standards are already in place. So I don't have to sit down and spend time to figure out maybe what's the best type of encryption or how I should configure something. I can rely on these bodies that can tell me, through all of their subject matter experts and all the other opinions that came as part of forming that government, in order to help me do my job the best that I can. And I think that's a perfect thing, is that by increasing that cooperation across the board, because not only are you going to save a lot on the cost, but in terms of the whole cybercrime perspective, as was mentioned, you can have a cybercrime center in the country, but a lot of these people are international. So not only do we need that cooperation for crime, but we need it in terms of standardizing network transportation, cybersecurity, and all these other facets for information technology.
I think we have a lot of standards already in the field. We can have more. There's no harm, but like for example, money laundering and terrorism when it comes to Bitcoin and how they're using it, but it's a procedural issue to be more specific, because we want to develop the weak part, how to reach the perpetrator and how to overcome the issue of the vigorous defense he'll have to prove that he's not guilty, in terms of the criminal law at least. And here we have the issue of the constitutional law or sovereignty again. So standard developing should now focus on the process itself to tackle the regulations we already have.
Right. Thank you so much. These are all very good answers, I think. I guess so. I'll give it here now. Give a chance to the audience if they have any questions. We'll be happy to receive any questions regarding laws or regulations or any questions surrounding this area as well. So, are there any questions? Question over here.
Thank you very much. I'm Mohammed Al-Musawi from Citra. First, I wanted to ask, who's the colleague that was prosecuted, you mentioned, who was asking about the data storage? Because I've heard of someone, but it wasn't about where the data is stored. It was about accusing the government that they are storing the data outside the country, which is something normal when you're using the cloud services. We don't have a cloud provider in Kuwait, so you have to store your data outside Kuwait, which is the regions of the cloud providers. So this is something usual. This is something it should not be a cyber problem, because the cloud providers, they do ensure the security and the privacy of your data. So this is one of the questions, and the right to know where the data is stored. Well, it is good to know where the data is stored, but in the other hand, I'm giving my private information to the hackers. Hackers don't know where my data is stored. Is it on-premise? Is it in cloud? Is it in Azure? Is it in AWS? Nobody knows. But when I say, okay, my data is stored, let's say in servers in Kate, for example, so they know where to attack. I'm opening the doors for them. But if they are in the dark, not everybody knows where the data is stored. Only certain people. So knowing where the data is stored, I don't know if it is a civil right, but hiding it for sure keeps the data safer. That's my opinion. And about Bitcoin, I don't know what is the. You said that Bitcoin is the central bank is banning the Bitcoin, but it's not because of criminal issues. It's because of financial issues, because they don't agree of trading using Bitcoin. Not because it's not secure, not because people are using it for money laundering or drug trafficking or whatever. Just because financial issues, because there is no financial regulation, they are not allowing the Bitcoin to be traded. That's my comment. Thank you very much.
I'd like to comment on what Muhammad just said. So, not knowing the security, the location of the servers that are containing our data, so for uh, for for attackers, basically, that's security by obscurity. It's not really gaining you anything. Knowing where the information is and making sure it's secure and making sure it's inside your country and that you have sovereignty over it, that's, I think, more important. If you have your data with Microsoft, okay, you trust Microsoft, but how do you know that Microsoft themselves are not dealing with your data in a criminal way or in a way that can harm you or your country? They're a private company. They're not even a government. So they can do whatever they want, and an employee at Microsoft can do whatever they want with your data. So this is why it's very, very important, I think, to keep your data local. United States data stays in the United States. Kuwait data stays in Kuwait. It's very important, especially for government data, for very private and sensitive data. And I would like to comment on the Bitcoin thing. The Bitcoin blockchain, I'm not a big fan of Bitcoin, honestly, but the blockchain is public, so any money laundering that happens on Bitcoin can be traced back. Maybe what you're thinking of is some of the other cryptocurrencies like Monero, where everything is completely private, and that's the, criminals are big fans of this new cryptocurrency. It's not really new, but it's just gaining popularity because everything is completely private and you can't really trace it back. But as far as Bitcoin goes, yeah, you can, if I send money to a certain person, you can find out that this wallet belongs to me and that wallet belongs to him, and we can't really obfuscate that much because there's credit cards involved in buying the Bitcoin to begin with, so you can really trace it back. It's quite easy, actually. Thank you.
في أحد عنده سؤال؟
Right. Thank you so much. This was all very insightful, and we will thank our guests here, Mr. Kyle and Dr. Fawaz.